folks, Professor K here. So if you're at this video, you're probably about the time where you're ready to switch from Glitch to VS Code. So what's great about this is that it'll be a lot easier to code your work, and it'll be a lot easier to see your stuff in real time because you can just go ahead and show it on your desktop browser. You can run tests locally. It's easier to code in VS Code than it is in Glitch. However, the trade-off is now you have to figure out how to get your local code to connect to GitHub. And that's what we're going to focus on today. This video is going to set you up with everything you need, hopefully, fingers crossed, to get up and running in VS Code, to clone a repository back to work on, and then hopefully push those changes back up. Let's get started. All right, so a couple of things that you're going to need here. First of all, we have over here a terminal. So this is a terminal window, and I'm just gonna close this and quit this and just show you real quick how to open that up. I'm gonna do Command Spacebar, and actually I'm gonna turn on my my keystrokes here so that you can see. Just look in the bottom right corner for those. Command Spacebar so you can see that, and then we're going to type in terminal, and that's the easiest way to open up a terminal. Now, if you've never opened up a terminal window before, it can look a little scary, but I promise it's real easy. I'm not going to make you type in anything too scary here. If you see a message like this about the default interactive shell, just ignore it. It's not important. The first thing that you can learn about terminal is just to hit Command K whenever you want to ignore something. Command K clears out all your logs. So I'm going to regularly be hitting Command and K all the time during my terminal demos just to show you a nice clean screen. I'm also going to increase the size of this. I'm just using Command plus to do that. And that's going to increase it so you can see it a little better. So the first thing that we need to do to get ourselves set up with VS Code is make sure that we have a local version of Git installed. So what's Git? Sounds familiar, right? Like GitHub? It's actually the whole version control system that GitHub is based off of. So Git is a version control system, and GitHub is a website that helps us work with that version control system. So that means that on our local computer, we need to figure out how to get that same version control system here. So to do that, we're going to start out by checking if we even have Git installed. So I'm going to do git --, that's a flag in terminal, and then version. And depending on what you get back in the terminal, you'll know whether or not Git is installed. I'm going to hit return. And if you get something like this, like I just did, Git version, anything above 2 is perfectly fine. You're good to go. If you don't, you should get a prompt here that says install Xcode or install command line tools for Git. Go ahead and run through that process now. That will get you the proper version of Git. So now that we've confirmed that Git is installed, we can actually leave terminal alone for a while. That's all we needed to do here. So let's close out of that. The next part of this is to actually open up VS Code and connect it up with GitHub. So I have my own kind of customized version of VS Code with lots of extensions and all my proper keystrokes over here. I'm going to open this in demo mode. I have a separate demo mode here so I can show you a nice clean version where you don't have to see any of that. So I'm just going to open up VS Code here. And you can open your VS Code, just the normal one. This is just so that it's not showing you anything that looks different from what you should see on your screen. So when you first open VS Code, this is the way it's going to look like. And I just want you to head right over to this third tab here, the one that looks like kind of like a little branch, and it says source control. So VS Code by default comes with support for Git and GitHub. So what we're going to do is see how this is starting to look familiar. Some of this terminology is starting to look kind of familiar. We're going to clone a repository from GitHub. So let's hit clone repository. And then up in this little command palette here, you're going to see clone from GitHub. Go ahead and click that. It's going to ask you to sign in. Go ahead and click allow. And this is going to bring up a window a lot like this that just says authorize Visual Studio Code to access GitHub. So go ahead and click continue. And under this, you should be able to authorize GitHub for VS Code. You can double check what repositories are available, and then the workflow as well. And if you hit authorize GitHub and then confirm your password, that should authorize it. And you're going to want this to open up in code. Mine's opening up in Visual Studio Code demo mode just because I wanted to show it for this demo, but for your purposes, make sure code is selected. So we're going to open this link, allow this extension to open this URI, and now we're all connected up. And you can see that all my repositories from my personal account are showing up in VS Code. So let's see, I wonder if we have an assignment here. It looks like, unfortunately, I don't have a demo assignment I can show you, but I could show you my portfolio website. So if you just click on that, at this point, what VS Code wants you to do is pick a place for your local files to live. It's kind of like saving your files on your desktop. So I like to keep mine in a separate folder called GitHub. So I'm just going to go right to GitHub and then select repository location. A repository is a copy of your entire code base for a project. So my demo files that you start with, as well as the files that you edit on a separate branch, a separate copy of your code, those are all part of the same repository. So let's hit select repository location. It's going to clone. And this might take a moment depending on how big the project is. That's totally fine. Just to kind of talk through some more terminology that you're going to hear as you begin working with Git and GitHub more often. Remember that Git is the version control system. GitHub is the website for the version control system. And then a repository is your entire code base. So let's go ahead and just open that cloned repository. Cool. And now we should see some familiar files over here. So I'm going to pause this video here. I'm going to give you a chance to catch up, and then we're going to talk in the next video about how to make changes to your repository in the proper place and then push them back up to GitHub. That's a really important step because that's how you're going to get auto grading to run and how you're going to be able to get those files back to me. Remember that these files are just on your system now. I can't see them, they're not on GitHub yet, so you do need to go through that additional step. Let's take a look at that in just a moment.